Hello, this is my blueprint overview for Unreal. So I just want to go over the super basics on this one. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of functionality, but I'll create a blueprint, maybe look at a couple different blueprints, see how you can create the events and functions in Blueprint. Real simple stuff. Just so you can start navigating around and not feel highly intimidated by Blueprint. So what is Blueprint? That is the visual scripting system that Unreal uses. And when they use this visual scripting system, you create all kinds of, you can create characters with it, you can create actors with it, you can create all kinds of different things. So if we go into my maps here, my Blueprint tutorial, I'm going to right click and create a Blueprint class. So anywhere you right click here in your content folders in the blank spot, you can pick a Blueprint class, and when you do, click on it, it's going to ask what the parent class is. A character is the ability, basically comes when you create it, it comes with a collision capsule and a movement controller. So you already have all your movement ability ready to go. The pawn is, as we see, it's something that can be possessed and receive input from the controller. An actor can be anything from a table that you want to spawn into the level to a enemy you want to simply move around, have chase the player, and there's others. We have actor components, scene components, game modes. So what we're going to do is not create a new one just quite yet. We're going to look at the level blueprint. So by going up here to blueprints and open level blueprint, this is the main blueprint that oversees our level. So when we open this up, we can see here we have an event graph, and this is pretty much all we're going to have in here for this tutorial. Other blueprints will have other views, which I can show in a second. So let's just go over the basics of how you navigate about this. And really the best way to do it is we could add an event graph if we want, but which I don't want to do, which I just did accidentally. Delete. This will list your functions, your macros, and your variables. So if we add a variable, we're going to see it here in a list, which is great. Blueprint's really easy to read. It has some serious strengths and serious weaknesses. Putting together gameplay with simple variables and bools and branches works really well in Blueprint because you can see everything on one screen very clearly, and it's really easy to figure out how everything branches together and everything. So let's just get started by doing something simple in our level. So if we play our level, big empty white world, let's just walk into a trigger and have something happen. So we'll go over here and grab a trigger volume, which I obviously typed in here trigger to find my triggers. Trigger volume. We'll put it on the shadow side so I know where to walk. And when I walk into that trigger, let's just have some debug text pop up. So here's my trigger. This is my blueprint for the level. I right click in the event graph. And this is very important. Pay attention to this one. This context sensitive text checkbox can be your best friend and worst enemy. By checking it, it immediately shows you events and functions that you may want to use for your trigger. But there are many times when you have this checked and you type in a very specific node name and you know you have the correct node name, yet it can't find it. It will completely not show it up here. So you have to uncheck it, type the info in, and then it'll pop up. So it can be good and bad. So what we want to do is touch our trigger or overlap it. So if we go to our add event collision, we look at add an actor, begin overlap. So when I overlap it, gotta have an event happen, and it immediately creates this node. So ultimately what I'm going to do is see a little debug text on screen. So I scroll this out, my context sensitive is checked, and let's see if it finds it correctly. Debug, actually, what am I saying? Debug. It's print string that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking in terms of debugging something. Print string, and it finds it beautifully. So right now I type in my trigger works. Simple enough. If I unroll this. So remember, there's lots of arrows that will unroll and show more. You can always experiment with that. Print to the screen, print to the log, and change the text color, how long it stays on screen. So we should now run through our level. And ta-da! My trigger works. My trigger works. My trigger works. Very simple. So let's do something like, how about let's have a print string happen when my level starts. So event begin, whoops, I misspelled it. So we're looking for event begin play. Click on event begin play. This is when I hit the play button, something's going to happen. So let's do the same thing. Print string. Level started. Let's make the duration 10 seconds. So this is you can always hit compile, but it will compile it when you hit play. Not necessary to do it before you hit play. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit play here, and because I hit play in my blueprint, it's going to, I'm going to being able to view the functionality happen here, but you have to hit it within the blueprint to see this happen. So I'm going to pull this aside, and let's see if I can see both at the same time here. Pull this over. Let's make this play in the selected viewport. Oops. And everything's going crazy. Oh, there we go. I think I might be able to fit both in now. Alright, there we go. So let's stop it. And if it's running, you're not going to be able to do anything here. You won't be able to change anything. That's pretty common. So let's hit play from here. Now watch. Oh, you just saw begin play, fire off. So now I'm going to run into my trigger. Where's my shadow? And now you can see my trigger be detected and fire off. And it's detected again. So look on the right side of the screen. Detected. It's firing off my trigger. So this is a very common problem. Let's do it again, and you can watch event begin play, fire off. Begin play. Printing string. Run into shadow. So a very common problem is people put their triggers in the wrong spot, and you think there's something wrong with your script, but you're not even running into your trigger. So make sure you visually use your debug abilities here and see your triggers fire off, your events fire off. Let's do something a little more complicated so we can start thinking about variables and such. What else can we do in Blueprint? Let's create a variable. So if I touch the shadow, so what I did is just click on this variable plus, and by default it creates a generic variable, which by default, I shouldn't say generic, by default is a bool. So we've got the boolean, and what we all know about a boolean, it's either true or false, zeros and ones. So I created the bool, and I'm going to touch the shadow. So if I touch this trigger, my trigger works. It's going to say, no, actually it's going to say touch shadow now. Touch shadow. And I'm going to set my variable. So let's drag it over. Set it. By default it's false. Check it to true. So it's going to set this. and we'll know that's true if copy paste. We can watch it visually go through here. True. Compile. True. Touch shadow. True. 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 All right. So that doesn't prove a whole lot except it's printing strings. So how we know it's set to true is let's set a requirement for our condition. So our condition is going to be a touch the shadow. Let's create another trigger. Copy paste. So when I go to the opposite side of my box, which the only reason I know it's the opposite side is it's on the opposite side of the shadow. Not the best visual cues, but we're just looking at the basics here. So if I go to the opposite side, I'm going to have a light turn on if I touch the shadow. So let's get a point light. And let's put it really close here so it's super bright. It doesn't need to be this big. Attenuation radius smaller. Color. Some greenish color. Should be obvious. Grab my trigger. Back to my blueprint. When I touch this trigger, now I want to create a branch. And a branch is the ability to do the and, ors, ifs for Unreal. And we do that with the condition. So my condition is if this is set to true. This bool is set to true. So if you've touched this and you've set this to true, you will toggle visibility, which the context sensitive is not working. There it is, toggle visibility. And how do I know to toggle that light? I need to create a target reference. It doesn't know what to target right now. So the light's selected, and this is where context sensitive works at its best. You can immediately create a reference to trigger. Whoa, trigger volume, no. We want my light selected. My light's selected. Create a reference to point light, yes. Connect that to target. There we go. And it doesn't know what the condition is right now. So just as I drag this over and said set, I can drag this over and say get. So get my bool, and this is my condition. Play. Let's go through it first. As you can see, we can see it. I should make it more green. More green. If the monitor, someone monitors is off, different than mine, it's going to look, you're not going to be able to see it so well. Dash to red. Red, okay, red's more obvious. There we go. And play. Nothing happens, nothing happens. Touch shadow. Now if I touch this, it should turn off. Turned off. Turns on. Oh, it's toggling it back and forth. That's what a toggle is, right? It's a switch. Alright, that's a simple way to do a simple condition for a mission or something you want to set up. Another thing you can do is, okay, so we have a bunch of variables here. Let's create some more. Let's create a a counter. And instead of it being a bool, it will be, we go over here and we will make it an integer or a float. Make it a float. And then we'll go over here and create negative, which I have no idea what that means, but I'm just creating titles. And that's not a float, that's going to be an integer. And then we need another boolean. We need a fell off cliff. That should be a bool. Alright, I'm just creating random variables here. So I can do this. I look at this and I'm like, whoa, what's all this stuff? So how do I search? And the search for Unreal is definitely not the best, but it's okay, or for Blueprint. So counter, find references. There's pretty much nothing. It just found the initial variable. Touch shadow, find references. Aha! So at the, if we double click on this, goes right to it. Double click on this, goes right to the condition, and you see it's connected to the branch. Double click on this, it goes to the print string, which you can see is part of the chain of events that happen here. So using the find the search down here, we'll find it fairly well. That's how you work that. I'm trying to think of other some real simple basics here. There's where you can create custom functions. So if you want on your event begin play, if you want to fire off your custom functions, and let's create one here. You have a custom event, I'm sorry, function event, custom event. And we can call it add custom event light toggle. So this is an event that's going to do a specific series of functions or events. So what we want to do is we're going to toggle another light. Toggle visibility. Let's go on our level and create another light. Copy paste. And we're going to start right here. So let's just have it happen right in front of our eyes. But before it toggles right away, because I won't see it, because I'm going to fire it off when the level starts, let's add a delay. And let's do a 3-second delay. We need to grab my reference to this light. It's selected. Right click, context sensitive, create reference. Now it's targeting my light. So when I click on play, it should do nothing. Why? It's still on. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. Still on. So why isn't it firing off? Because there's nothing connected to it telling it that. So if I wanted this to happen by walking into a trigger, I could go here and say, because it's called light toggle, I could search light toggle, call function light toggle. So it found this custom event. So we can toggle the light by touching this trigger, and we can also, when we start to level, do the same thing. Search for light toggle. And if you make this event name too generic, it might seem like an Unreal event, not your custom. So sometimes I tend to name these something more unique. So let's watch this. So this should disappear. This should toggle my light after, so it's going to go here, print my string, leave it up for 10 seconds, and then so it's going to go here, fire off this event, and 3 seconds later my light should turn off. So after 3 seconds, I hit compile, play. 1, 1000, 2, 1000, 3, 1000, off. But guess what? That light's going to turn back on when I touch, is it this one? Here's this one. There it goes. There was a 3-second delay. So did you see that? So it'll delay again. Ready? Click. 1, 1000, 2, 1000, boop, 3. This one's back on. 3 seconds later. Boop. So that's how you do custom events. Create a custom event and then you can call it anywhere you want. We looked at searching, we looked at variables. I'm not going to get into functions right now. We're just going to stick with the basics, how to navigate about. That would be a good first starting point to play with. Start getting used to how to use Blueprint. And like I said, let's open another Blueprint really quick. So we go to enemies. These are actors I created or characters. So this is an enemy shooter. And when I created it, it was a Blueprint character. So it comes with the control move, the character movement, the capsule component. I believe that's all it comes with. I added the light, the skeletal mesh, the mesh, and then built out its functionality here in the event graph. If we look at the viewport, you're going to see the components I added. Here's my blue point light. This would be my skeletal mesh. So it's almost like a prefab, a character. When people say Blueprint, it can get a little confusing because it can contain so many different type of objects and actors and abilities for Unreal. So don't get confused by that. I think I'm going to leave it at that for now, just so you get a quick overview. And remember, the open level blueprint is here, and the rest of your blueprints are kind of spread throughout the project itself to find. And you can always do this. The search, one thing I forgot on the trigger, if you right click, it can jump to an event and go straight to Blueprint. So it immediately finds your trigger. It does not find references, which bothers me a little bit. So my light, if I click on it and say, I'm assuming like there would be something here that would be like, hey, you are being called as a reference in Blueprint. It does not do that. I wish it did that, so we could just click on it and jump to the reference in Blueprint. But that's one of its shortcomings. Alright, I hope that's good start for you, just to start feeling comfortable. Set something up like this in your level. There's obviously with Blueprint, it's a huge visual scripting system, so it'll go on and on and on. Most of my Blueprint information will be in the other tutorials. Level design, Unreal Basics, Fix-It tips and quick fixes. They'll be all over my tutorials. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.